Hello and welcome back. In today's video we are taking a look at another Bannerlord blog. Now today it is actually slightly interesting and brings us some more in-depth information about sieges, more specifically the siege engines involved in these sieges and the ways we're actually going to be able to attack a castle. Now I missed out last week's dev blog because simply it was really boring and not interesting at all. But this week's actually seems a little bit more interesting, so we're going to take a quick look at it and highlight the things that are more important throughout. So the first method of assault that you can use is a siege ladder. Now the mechanics of the ladders have been greatly altered in Bannerlord. Obviously in Warband you had to kind of stand over it, hold F over it until your bar reached the end, and then you could erect the ladder, yes. And it would kind of float up into the air and latch onto the walls until one of the defenders knocked it down again. However, in Bannerlord, we've seen through the trailers where you actually have a proper animation where 2 or 3 guys will push it onto the walls from the bottom, and it looks a lot better. And there's probably different types of ladders depending on the faction you're playing as, or maybe you can buy different types from shops, etc. So the dev blog reads, siege ladders are offered the simplest form of assault to a besieging army. Escalade. Naturally, this is a kind of direct assault put on the defending forces at a great advantage. Naturally, this is the kind of direct assault that the attackers may launch, which put the defending forces at a great advantage, with the top of each ladder acting as a choke point. The purpose of this kind of assault may not necessarily have been to overrun the defenders, but to perhaps capture a vital strategic point, such as a gatehouse, which would allow the main assault to commence. Now, I always think that these ladders, kind of in Warband, they were, depending on how good the defenders were, you'd literally have like 3 or 4 guys at the top of that, and you'd go over one by one and just get completely mullered unless you kind of pile in over and over again and eventually get enough people staying alive, possibly like holding up your shield so you can actually get onto the bastion and draw the defenders away from the ladder point. And that's how you kind of take the bastion. Now this can be useful for capturing gatehouses, as they mentioned, so you can open the main gates, or even as a distraction. Now you can put these ladders up, that will bring defenders, and defenders will be focused around these points because there's a lot of men going up there, while you possibly bring in a siege tower or you start attacking another area of the walls, maybe going around the back with another siege ladder. That is a good idea for these. The next part of the blog is about siege towers. It reads, siege towers worked on a similar principle to siege ladders, in that they allowed attackers to negate a wall by climbing over it. However, siege towers offered one distinct advantage over ladders. Their particularly enclosed design offered some level of protection to attacking troops and would allow a greater number of warriors to assault the wall at the same time. In Bannerlord, siege towers work in exactly the same way. They provide protection to troops as they make their way towards the wall before lowering the drawbridge for the attackers to rush across. However, siege towers can be destroyed by the defending force, so players should make sure to suppress any defensive siege weapons before committing a tower to an assault. Now this sounds a lot more interesting because in Warband, now I like to make the comparison between Warband and Bannerlord because it's basically Bannerlord is bringing a lot of the existing mechanics in Warband but just completely improving them, obviously the graphics overhaul, and then obviously adding new stuff as well. Now in Warband you actually had a siege tower that you would kind of stand by, and it would kind of float towards or move towards the wall, and it couldn't be destroyed. Now the actual factor of these siege towers being destroyed is really, really good because basically in Warband you'd have an ensured way of getting onto the walls because you could just put the siege tower up and loads of people could flood through it. You've got a wide kind of width of attack because of the ramp being quite large, and it was very effective. However, if this can be destroyed, all the defenders can kind of focus their siege weapons onto that tower. Now again, this could leave an opportunity for the attackers to actually distract maybe the defenders with a big siege tower or maybe 2 siege towers and then get access to maybe one of these siege ladders and kind of attack that way. It is going to be very interesting attacking castles because there's so many different things you can do, and we've only scratched the surface so far in this blog. The next part is about battering rams. It reads, battering rams allowed attacking armies to take more of a direct approach when assaulting a castle, and worked through a mix of momentum and good old-fashioned brute force. The idea was fairly simple: attach a metal head to a tree trunk, then swing it repeatedly at a door, a gate, or a wall until it gave way. In Bannerlord, battering rams are only effective against the outer gates of a castle, and like siege towers, they can be destroyed. They have a roof to protect against light missile fire from above. However, defensive siege weapons can destroy this cover, exposing the troops within. Now, battering rams were in Warband on the modded servers, such as Mountain Siege and stuff like that. They were kind of buggy, but they did work. Again, this element of destruction is really impressive. I like that the attackers don't have that ensured invincible way of attacking a castle. This is shown through the siege. I don't know if siege ladders can actually be destroyed, but siege towers and battering rams, and also different parts of the battering ram can be destroyed, so the roof may be taken out. If I was attacking a castle with a battering ram, I would make sure that kind of my archers are suppressing the enemy archers and the enemy defensive siege weapons, because you're really going to be wanting to make sure that battering ram actually lives, because it gets you through that front gate, which allows you access straight to the banner point, as well as getting up behind the archers by going through, obviously, into the main courtyard and going up the stairs, for example. Now, I'd make sure that this is kind of the main thing that I keep kind of protected. Again, it's all to do with this thinking logically and actually putting a lot of thought into these sieges, whether that's multiplayer or single player. But I think particularly in single player, it would be really, really fun. And imagine like multiplayer, we're using team speaks, especially in a persistent world mod, for example. This kind of thing will be absolutely amazing. Imagine the clan battles, especially with the increased server size. You can really have some fun times with this stuff. It would be great. The next siege weapon listed here is the Ballista, or the Ballistae. I don't actually know how you say that, but I'm going to go with the Ballista. The Ballista worked like a giant crossbow by using a torsion, I'm not sure how you say that either, to launch a spear-sized arrow or bolt at such a high velocity that it would pierce any type of armor and decimate anyone unlucky enough to be standing in its way. Now, I've actually seen one of these operate in real life, and it is extremely powerful. Like, it is ridiculously powerful. They can penetrate armor without a problem. And these things will obviously be one of the main attacking weapons, as well, especially as they can be wheeled around, but defenders will also be able to use these as well, and these are going to be the main thing that are going to be probably taking out your siege towers and your battering rams, because this will just go straight through the roof of the battering ram, and you'll be able to hit the people pushing it, and it's going to be very effective, especially if the defenders have a lot of these ballista. It goes on to say, in Bannerlord, both attacking and defending armies in sieges will have access to Ballista. They provide a way for attackers to pick away at the defending troops before committing to a full-scale assault, or help to open any choke points that might develop as the battle progresses. Likewise, defending troops may wish to use Ballistae to dwindle the numbers of the approaching enemy, or they could turn their attention towards enemy siege engines to prevent them from reaching the walls. Ballistae also have a fire projectile variant, which takes longer to build and has a less ammunition than the standard kind, but is more powerful against enemy siege engines. So this gives us an overview of how useful these things are. They're going to be multi-purpose. You can also get different types of ammunition, which could be really cool. Imagine if you could kind of get like flaming arrows and things going from these. You could maybe set alight a siege engine or a battering ram, or even people. That would be really cool to see someone kind of like flailing around with their body on fire and then running into other people. That would be sick. But like, just this idea of having a ballista, I really like. So the next siege weapon is the mangonel. Now, before I get into this, I remember literally spamming these in Age of Empires 2. They were really effective at literally just crushing troops because of their spread of fire. But that was an old game, and they were just really fun to use, I just thought I'd say. The mangonel or mangonet was another type of catapult used in siege warfare. The main aim of the mangonel was to create a breach in the castle walls by launching large projectiles from a bucket placed at the end of an arm. They were also used to hurl carcasses and excrement over the walls in an attempt to spread fear and disease among enemy troops. As with Ballista, both attacking and defending armies will have access to mangonels. In Bannerlord, players can build a standard version which can be used to target and destroy merlons during sieges, exposing enemy troops stationed on the walls. There is also fire variants which deal more damage to enemy siege engines and has an area of effect type of damage against troops. Now, I really like this idea as well, that defenders and attackers can use the same siege equipment, and the mangonel especially, with the actual variation of things that it can do, whether that's attacking enemy troops. It'll be interesting to try and like wheel these around, maybe near the siege engine, kind of bring it up behind the siege engine so it has a bit of protection, and then start launching rocks at the walls and kind of slowly destroying them, because destruction is obviously such a big thing in Bannerlord that you can actually bring down a wall, and that will give you a main breaching point. Now, there are other things which we'll talk about next which are probably better for this, but I think I'd personally really like to use a mangonel against infantry, because the spread of the rocks that you can fire, especially as we can get different types of ammunition, it could be really, really cool to just launch one of these things off the walls and then hit like a big group of people that are maybe at the bottom of a ladder or at the top of a siege tower or something like that. And I definitely like the idea of having different types of ammunition that we can use. The last thing on this list is the trebuchet. It reads, trebuchets were perhaps the most powerful type of siege engine used in the ancient and medieval warfare. They used a pivoted arm to throw projectiles over a great distance and came in two different designs. You had the traction, which was powered by people, and counterpoise, which used a weight at the end of an arm. In Bannerlord, you can expect to see counterpoise trebuchets being used by the besieging armies. They can be used to devastate defending troops from a relatively safe distance and destroy merlons and mantlets with ease. Trebuchets can also be built as a fire variant, which has an area of effect type of damage that is extremely effective against enemy troops. So the trebuchet is definitely going to be the main thing you're going to want. I reckon you're going to need about 2 of these, because you can just completely smash down a wall from a great distance. They're going to be quite hard to hit, unless possibly the defenders sally out. That's a really cool idea. I like the idea of defenders sallying out, and maybe launching a cavalry attack on taking out these trebuchets so the attackers have a difficult time getting in. That's possibly something we could see in multiplayer. That would be really awesome. And you could have these things just pounding away at the walls, and they could bring down the wall, and then your infantry can simply charge in and then charge up the walls. The defenders would be forced to retreat, and it would be a really interesting way of actually seeing how a siege would develop. And it also gives opportunity for a lot of fun gameplay. Even aiming these things and firing them will be really cool. And also you can change your ammunition type to be more effective against infantry, which I assume is like firing lots of kind of smaller rocks maybe at a group of infantry, or maybe fireballs. I'm not sure. It would be quite cool to see what will happen. Unfortunately, we haven't actually seen these demonstrated in a video just yet, but hopefully soon Tailworlds will give us some more video footage. That would be cool. I hope that you did enjoy that dev blog. I certainly did enjoy something a little bit different and something a little bit more informative. Again, we haven't got a release date. We haven't got anything to know when the game's going to come out, because who actually fucking knows at the end of the day. It will probably be, I guess, 2 years. Could be a year. We don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for today's video. I'm working on some Hearts of Iron content. I promise I'll get some up at some point. I'm also working with a dev team to showcase you a new warband mod that's coming out. It looks really, really awesome. It's called Persistent Kingdoms. It's a new Persistent World mod that basically takes the old PW 4.5, which is the most popular mod that's come out on it, obviously since its release, and they basically improved loads of different things to do with it. And there's loads of clans coming back. There's going to be a positive kind of closed beta that I'll be taking part of. So if you want to check out this new Persistent World mod and you're maybe interested in playing it, go down to the links below. There's a Steam group and also their mod DP page. It looks really interesting, and a new opportunity for hopefully an open world Mountain Blade mod to become proper again. Like, have it so it's a little bit different, but not too different, because we know in the past Persistent World mods kind of have died off after a few weeks, apart from obviously Phoenix on PW 4.5. So we should see what happens next with that, and obviously more content coming soon that won't be just Bannerlord stuff. Obviously I'll be incorporating Bannerlord stuff, and yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an absolutely brilliant day, and I will see you in the next battle.
Sing the song for a broken hearted.